Well, we're here today. I've got the proposition up there that the screen itself is becoming the event. So what we're about to uncover is exactly what we mean by that. So just to introduce ourselves, so I'm the screen content strategist and creative director at A-Vision. So we produce everything from TV commercials to content for live events, and we also work within virtual and augmented reality worlds. I'm also a board director at Epcot. And my colleague Carl.
Hello, my name is Grinter. I founded a company called Three Wise Monkeys, an animation company. But we are we undertake a lot of interactive work. In our animation, is such a broad context these days. So there's all sorts of different work. So using narratives in all sorts of different participatory and sequential environments.
Hello, I'm Ranzie. I'm one of the founders and creative directors of an agency called Platform. We're a design and technology business. So I guess we're coming to this from the point of view of mostly technology and interactive media.
Excellent. Okay, so there we go. Hopefully it'll make sense of what we do by the end of the presentation. So we're here to discuss this particular proposition, which happened in the 1960s by Marshall McLuhan, that the medium itself was the message. So, Carl, do you want to open up this one?
I just wanted to set up a couple of contexts to what we're trying to present, but hopefully this is will form part of a discussion. It's a point of view. Digital media is an ever-changing and opening view to the way, and changing the way we view kind of media. And we wanted to kind of just present our thoughts. So I was going to set some context. So my background and interest has always been in animation, computer animation, graphic design and visual effects, and which is kind of a collaborative field and unifies into technology, artistry, technical design. And the essence of animation is really about creating new worlds. So it's come a long way, as I mentioned before. It has, and its meaning's changed so that it comes down to a frame-by-frame technique as a means of production, and it incorporates everything from stock frame, drawn animation, computer-generated graphic design, visual effects, photorealism. So nowadays, the preference for particular tools that we use, mediums or disciplines over others, has lost really its function of defining or potentially legitimising a practice or a body of work. So no combination of the tools that we use or the skills can be urgent under the terms of a schedule for dealing with content in our times. So Marshall McLuhan, he speculated that the medium was the message back in 1965, and he attached a great significance to the character of media, where an artist's attitude to the medium reflected an emphasis over means over content. So digital media, by contrast, it's not characterised by the medium so much. It is the user, we believe, that determines how it's experienced or used. So whether the medium's interactive or not is really these days an ad hoc decision. It's made in collaboration between the content provider and the user. So perhaps a more appropriate slogan for the digital media age would be the user is the message. The choice of medium has practically stopped being an issue. Distinctions that until recently were quite significant are becoming irrelevant. The contrast between analogue and digital media, between handmade, computer-assisted, is not charged with the same symbolic or ideological meaning in the way that it used to be. Potentially at a time when we had things like art journals and design journals that would kind of give us those manifestos and those ideologies. So decisions about the techniques that we use are the result of the practical considerations that are taken in view of the circumstances or the character of projects that we come to. So the power of the internet has changed the availability of choice. So it gives us the power to search. It's opened a kind of society where there is an abundance of everything. So where supply kind of completely outstrips demand. So as consumers of media, we now dictate our own terms to the publishers and producers of media. We don't expect to pay for music, books, news, entertainment, communication, and media is becoming part of a marginal cost society. And what I mean by that is the cost of resources, such as utilities, it could be wind power, for example, services and products. They end up having a negligible cost to produce one extra unit of a product or a service. So effectively, we experience things for free. The only thing we do expect to pay for is what we call a premium service. And that premium service these days, we believe, is largely the event. It's where participation confers on those people that are attending, the viewer, a sense of the exclusive. And this could be a cultural phenomenon that encompasses the zeitgeist, or a spirit of our times. So I'd like to just show you something that I think is quite inspiring from my point of view, and it puts digital media into a totally different realm. It's an event-based digital medium, and hopefully this kind of shows and exemplifies how the user now is really the message.
The idea of Pixma was really to think of people as like pixel wearers, like you're going to create my light canvas. So you just give an object that has computational power and communication capabilities, and you can make magic. For the Super Bowl, we gave away 80,000 hats to everyone in the audience. All these hats were embedded with the Pixma system that reacted to infrared commands that we sent from the catwalk. That signal is beamed at each individual seat, and the hats will pick it up.
It makes the crowd euphoric and also connecting with each other. It's really like a feeling like, okay, we're in this together.
The most interesting thing about Pixma is really the experience, really how people react to the objects that we give them, what they do with it, and how we give them the objects. The light aspect is nice, but I think where we have the most opportunities is really with the interaction. By reinventing technology, by really making our own types of media, we can create this moment of magic where people are in a state of wonder, where everybody realizes that they're part of a whole and they're not just sitting watching a show.
So I think that kind of just starts the conversation that we're trying to put on, the themes that we're just trying to put into this. The next thing I'd like to move on to is, so much of the interactive work enables portable gaming, augmented and virtual reality that can be used for education tools, entertainment, and a lot of what we do kind of is at the interface between art, technical direction, software development, and also technological development, and that can sometimes be with actual publishers or tech companies. The one project that I want to show you just next is takes us into the idea of how that wonder can be translated to the small screen. So we are working with Google at the moment, trying to develop a project called Spotlight Stories, which some of you may have seen or not. It was launched on Motor X platform, which is a handset from Motorola. It's got a very powerful graphics processing inside and allows real-time animation rendering. And that has been launched in the US, and it was used as a way of promoting the handset, which is going to be launched worldwide very shortly. But this is just one example of Windy Day, which is a project that has been launched on Spotlight Stories on Motor X.
if you can imagine that the whole kind of panorama of that animation is around you, and really what you're doing is that you're using your device as a kind of portal or window into that with real-time rendering, which is just absolutely phenomenal. So another big dominant trend that we feel is happening as well is that in a digital world, anything is possible. And a very good example of that is something that Burberry did in the past couple of years in Beijing. Burberry have really been pioneers in interactive technology. I mean, they have a fantastic website and apps and all sorts of things, where really what they're wanting to do is to show that anything that they encounter technologically has the same ability and strength and depth of their brand and can be conveyed from small screen to big screen. The other thing that they did in Beijing is that they actually, in this particular fashion show, they were using real-time, real people, real models, and also mixing that with avatars and holograms. So in creating a digital asset that way, you've obviously not just got something which is an incredible wow, but also the fact that these are digital assets that can be reused or played simultaneously at various venues around the world. So to give you an example of what I'm talking about. So there we have a very big brand making a big splash with a big budget behind it. But another very interesting kind of other dominant trend that's happening at the moment as well is that we don't necessarily believe in the word of big brands. That sometimes that what can be happening socially is perceived much more as a notion of truth. Two kind of very good examples of this is that, is anybody in the room familiar with Tanya Burr or Pixie Woo? Okay, so clearly nobody has children under the age of 14 here. So these are video bloggers, and they have the most phenomenal followings into the many millions. And what they do is that they sit often in their bedrooms simply talking about themselves and their lifestyle, the makeup that they might be wearing, the trends, the fashions that they might be wearing. And just to put the kind of the viewing figures into some form of context here is that the official viewing figures for the first episode of this season of Game of Thrones was actually only around 500,000 people. Yet obviously we see this as a phenomenally successful project, whereas these video bloggers are going out and getting 1.5 million views for something that they've just simply made in their own bedroom. So to give you an example of what that is.
Hi guys. Hi guys. Hello everybody. Hello everybody. Welcome back to Pixie Woo. Today I'm going to do a Rachel Weisz tutorial. Today's makeup tutorial I'm going to do for you is of Cheryl Cole.
I'm doing the Breaking Dawn Bella Swan look.
Today we are going to talk about our eyebrows.
Today we're so excited because we are joined.
Oh, we're in a bumpy taxi right now. Good evening everyone, and I know I'm saying good evening, which means I have not vlogged yet today, and it is, what time is it, Karina?
It is 19:43.
How cool is Karina's accent, by the way? For those of you who are Irish, you won't think it's cool at all because you're so used to it, but for me, I think it's awesome. Yeah, so it is almost 8 p.m. and basically I have just been working on stuff all day, stuff that I can't vlog and just add.
There we go. So Ranzie, do you want to follow on from that?
So I think when we start to think about online, one of the things we're seeing is this shift from used to be things that we read to things that we watch, but I would say that we're starting to see things that we experience. So factors that might define experiences, maybe things like participation or real time or personal or social. So one of the things you guys may have seen that I want to share with this film, The Beauty Inside, it's a social film, but one of the really great things and powerful things about it is that the audience play a role, so the users who view this film play a role in it and can interact with it. It was launched on Facebook in 8 languages in 13 countries, and whilst it's a compelling film in its own right, but it also delivers an underlying brand message for Intel, which is ultimately its inside what matters. So
This is the strange story of Alex, a man who wakes up every day in a different body. And for a while, that was okay. Alex kept a daily record of his odd life on his computer, which accompanied him everywhere he went. One day, though, Alex fell in love. And that is when everything changed. How could he have a relationship if he always looked different on the outside?
You never had a girlfriend? We had girlfriends. A lot of girlfriends. Each one only for a night.
The Beauty Inside, inspired by Intel Inside, featuring the Toshiba Ultrabook, starring Topher Grace, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and the audience. The movie was aired in 6 weekly episodes, and because Alex looked different every day, anyone in the audience could play him and be featured in the film. Each episode contained a few webcam diaries in which real fans actually wrote and acted out some of Alex's most intimate moments in the movie.
I called her 3 times today. I hung up every time.
And in the end, the audience helped give Alex hundreds of faces. This love story by 2 technology companies reached 70 million views. It got strangers discussing their own sense of identity, all while celebrating the fact that it's what's inside that counts.
She was right. I would see her again. But she would never see me.
So I think so that's a good example of I guess where films can start to involve social media and can involve people in terms of defining a narrative. I think another interesting aspect is what technology allows us to do and how technology impacts on films. So, for example, we can now pull real-time content from Facebook into films and make them personal. And we can directly allow the audiences to affect the outcome of the story of the film. I think one of the things more recently, which I quite like, is this collaboration between Google and Arcade Fire. I'm not sure if you guys know Arcade Fire, they're a kind of quite popular group. But they collaborate with Google to create these short films, and this is just one they created to promote their new single. But it allows the viewers to directly affect the film from their home using a mobile or iPad or the desktop device.
Just a Reflector is an interactive film that explores the themes in Arcade Fire's new single, Reflector, through 2 devices simultaneously, the computer and smartphone. Directed by Vincent Morissette, in collaboration with Aaron Copeland, the film follows a young Haitian woman as she travels between her world and our own. Vincent and Aaron wanted to create a new form of interactive storytelling, one that allows technology to enhance the film rather than distract from it. Just a Reflector pushes the boundaries of music videos by combining traditional film techniques with cutting-edge web technologies. With teams working across different time zones, we began with prototypes. Affecting shaders using gyroscope and accelerometer data, syncing sounds between multiple devices, dynamically generating animations using tracking data, predicting the user's phone location off-screen. These early experiments were refined as filming took place in Haiti and Montreal. The technologies used in the film are accessible to any developer with Google Chrome, and the code was released as open source, available for anyone to explore on the site's tech page. The project received widespread international press recognition across multiple industries, including music, technology, and general news. Social media coverage was equally strong, trending on Twitter and Instagram feeds worldwide. In a final twist, we incorporated the user's video feeds so they could become part of the experience, be featured in the actual film, and help Excel break through to the other side.
It's a fantastic project, that. I just wanted to sort of take things a little bit forward from that and focus on the way that events are changing. So, as you can see in that, there was interaction between different types of media. The next thing I want to show you is a film called Leviathan. It's really about storytelling. Hopefully something that's come across on the examples that we've been showing today is that digital media is trying to make a connection with the viewer, and that connection is an emotional connection, so that it leaves a lasting impact. It's something that the user, or the viewer, or the participant can take away with them. And I think that that is the most important thing about the digital media. Is it is ad hoc. The user decides how they want to use it, and then the event builds from there. The moment builds from there. This is just looks into the way that future storytelling might actually happen in a similar way to Reflector, but this is an audience participatory event where people can see a film as a cinematic audience and then interact with that in a participatory way. So Leviathan was it's kind of an open collaboration, and because this is the feature of sessions today, where boundaries between the individuals and the organisations, they become really blurred. And so a new organisation has to crystallise out of all of the other businesses. And small enterprises are constantly operating in this kind of shifting network of the way that new kind of innovation and new things happen. And that brings new opportunities and new relationships around that.
In the same way that when they first started moving pictures and they didn't quite know what it was going to look like to tell a story with moving pictures, but they knew it was really cool to make those pictures move, that's the place that I feel like we're at with digital and built worlds. Intel Labs and the USC World Building Media Lab got together because we wanted to see what would happen. If we actually built these digital worlds, could stories begin to actually emerge out of them? Could you create environments that were rich enough and interesting enough that people could have compelling story experiences inside these landscapes?
So what we're looking at here is the augmented reality experience of the Leviathan project. Here we have a projection screen, and the grayscale image, the border around it, is actually a marker which a camera on an Intel Ultrabook can recognize. And when it recognizes the pattern, it can actually register its point in space. So here we have a shot of the Leviathan entering the space, but then it's going to transition to an augmented reality mode where an audience member can pick up an Ultrabook, can point it at the screen and register the marker. Then we can make the whale fly out of the traditional cinematic two-dimensional screen and fly into the audience space itself.
I've been in the film industry about 35 years, and as the designer, my responsibility was to create the context for the story. It suddenly became more like creating something that looked much more like a world. And what we observed was that the world itself started giving back and stimulating and provoking different reactions in the story space. The challenge that we had from Tony and from Intel was how could we imagine the next step of storytelling? World building evolved almost directly out of the realization that the linear process was not strictly relevant when you had these immersive tools.
The Leviathan series is basically about this collision between technologies. So I think that using new technologies to tell that story kind of makes sense.
Working with Intel is very interesting when we're in this kind of fluid, creative, imaginative space, because you've got a great tension between the pragmatism of engineering and maybe the pushback that we can provide here, which is the why, the what if and the why not. That push and pull, they inform each other in a really balanced way. The great strength of this relationship is that we are at the center of the next generation of storytellers who are in turn at the center of the narrative media city in the world. So it's a very powerful place to be looking at a future that we cannot quite imagine, but we can sort of prepare ourselves for.
So maybe just to sum up some of the examples that we're seeing there is that very clearly a static point of view reading this quote is that a static point of view is something which is just not possible nowadays. The way that we are consuming media is either through devices this way or that, or of course through full interaction to have whatever we want on our terms when we want it. Very interestingly, however, the particular quote that you're seeing there was actually made by Marshall McLuhan in the 1960s. So perhaps what we have is that we may be seeing them kind of coming around again. So what does all of this mean to us? Well, this is obviously changing the way that we work, and the key theme of today is all about collaboration. So perhaps to give you kind of some example of how that changes the way that we work is that clearly it is of course disruptive production process. This kind of this linear means of production is not the way that we're going about innovative projects nowadays. And this requires, in order for this to kind of work very, very well, is that it requires a very, very good relationship with clients. It requires a client to be innovative, risk-taker. And clearly it's for us to make them feel very safe in what they're about to be delivered. But if we really wanted to kind of break new ground, trust and good relationship with client is clearly very key. So I thought I would just give you an example of that, of a project that we've worked on for the past few years with Vodafone, McLaren, Mercedes, with F1. We were commissioned by Vodafone in order to use the medium of augmented reality to act as a device working across all Grand Prix throughout the world. And a very, very key part of this is that if you can imagine that when Vodafone were the key sponsor for McLaren Mercedes, is that it was a bit of a disconnected brand sponsorship. It was a very expensive brand sponsorship, but there was nothing kind of integral to what Vodafone does as to what McLaren Mercedes does. One company makes very fast cars, and the other company makes hopefully very fast data. So what we tried to do with that augmented reality experience was something which combined the two together, and we're able to show that to you now. But when we won this contract, if I'm kind of very honest with you, even though we felt we were in a safe zone that we could deliver, we didn't necessarily know exactly what we were going to deliver, or for that matter, exactly how we were going to deliver. So when we talk, in kind of quite loose terms about collaboration there, is that, the actual experiences that we created were avatars of Jensen, which you'd be able to see on that iPad if you so wish. We've got full 3D scanning of cars and a whole pit crew coming together in order to perform a pit stop. And this pulled heavily from all sorts of different worlds. It wasn't just from a kind of filmic and high-end world, but obviously we were needing to work with all of the AR encoders in order for this to work. Carl, you and I worked very, very closely together on this in order to create animation that looked, photorealistic and was, was clearly going to, be great. A very, very big part of this as well is that because we work also in the world of advertising as well, is that positioning an account director into something like this was quite key, because in order to kind of make that client feel very, very safe, that everything was going to be delivered on time, on budget, whilst obviously under the surface there was an awful lot of kind of worries and panics as to how we could exactly do this. So that's a kind of very, very good example of a kind of very, very large scale of something that just needed to be delivered and work at every Grand Prix throughout the world without anything ever going wrong, which it has for 2 years. There we go.
And then on that last point of collaboration, I'll touch on something maybe at the other end, which is a lot smaller. So I think on the point of collaboration, I'm not sure how many people here are responsible for producing content or film, but I think to produce any of the pieces that we've shown earlier, there are new principles at play. These type of films or these type of experiences are no longer linear narratives. Rather, they're very much more dynamic stories that can be personalised and tailored for individual audiences. I think one of online video's great strengths is the fact that it is so inherently shareable. And production costs are a fraction of what they were 5 years ago. So we're going to see a lot more technology in the example of Reflector, where they made all of that technology open source and available to anybody to adapt it and use it. Then we're going to see a lot more of that. And we're going to also see a lot more of integrating data and content into real-time film so that it makes it much more personalised. So to do any of those things, collaboration is much more important, bringing together technologists, story makers, artists, and talent in itself. This is one example. We created an interactive Christmas card for an agency. It was optimised for mobile and invited users to send their friend, in this particular case, it was a Christmas diss. We found an underground hip-hop artist in the UK. Essentially, he created, I think it was up to 50 individual clips, which were then stitched together based on you being able to control it. So, essentially, you would select from a range of different options based on your friend's character, build, behaviour, age group, and essentially that would send them a personalised Christmas message. Which was just an individual piece of fun. But I think that increasingly you're going to start seeing more and more content which is personalised, interactive, and tailored to individual audiences.
Great. Okay. So, to summarise, I mean, it's about kind of stepping out of your comfort zone. This, isn't it? So risk is good. This is something that I think is very, very key. I mean, what we have is that we have competitors to our industries that are way outside of what we would normally call our industries. The people who can put on events in all types of different ways, who can create content in all types of different ways. So certainly, what we can't be doing is working in the ways of production that we've been brought up with. So take risk. Obviously fill clients with trust. This is very key. Don't worry them. Working outside of your comfort zone, and obviously work more socially, and clearly leave you on the final point of collaboration. So that's it. Thank you very much. We're here for questions if everybody has it.
Just wondering, in terms of like skilling up all the skills that you need to produce all these amazing tech things, you obviously probably personally have really good networks of people and good people that you know and can bring in, but do you think there's a skills gap? Is there kind of training in these areas of building applications and using data and all these, you know, the 3D stuff and everything. Is that, can you find enough good people, and how do you find the right people to bring in and all that kind of stuff?
Carl, that might be kind of a very good.
Instrumental in everything that you're talking about is about what producers do. And when I say producers, what I mean by that are people that build relationships, and they build relationships outwards. You need basically horizontal communication. Doesn't matter whether you're a big company or you're a small company. What you can't do is you can't go up and then down in the hierarchy. It's basically the trust has got to be placed within the team, and that trust has got to be shared amongst the team. And you can only share that trust by knowing the people that you're actually going to collaborate with. So producers are instrumental in getting that network spread. You've got to have a real live network, and you've got to place yourself in a situation where you are willing to go that extra mile. You kind of love what you do. There's no point in thinking about a 9 to 5 with this one, because you carry an awful lot of responsibility, not least by trying to tie as a producer, trying to run a job, delivering for a client, but also trying to keep all the collaborators intrinsically tied into the project and moving forward on it. Because inevitably, with every collaboration that starts, you have to give, and that's sometimes quite a difficult thing for companies to do. That's not just part of the risk. I think that you have to give, and then you will receive. It's very much a part of the industry that we're very used to kind of coming up, being brought up in, I think. And it's about extending all those skills that you have. And then the hardest skill of all is doing something to get noticed by, let's say, tech companies. That really kind of suddenly opens up something else, because you start receiving kind of things like development kits to be able to achieve things. And once you get those, you can start building a relationship with the actual tech company. And so much now is not just about the publisher, but it's very much about how the tech is moving forward and how you can utilise your own software developers and your own artists combined with the tech company to achieve something new and kind of innovative that makes you stand out a little bit more than everyone else. Is that helpful?
That's a brilliant answer, thank you.
Anybody else?
Thanks guys for a great presentation. Nice to see the three of you collaborating obviously on the presentation as well. I thought the killer was in the final slide where you said take risks and get a client to trust you, which is quite a powerful combination. So for many EVCON members, I would have thought the things that you're talking about are going to be very new. So, and you talked a bit about the Vodafone pitch. You made that pitch believing you could do it, but not entirely knowing how you would do it. I just wondered what you could do to help EVCON members, one, take risks with clients who are generally very risk averse, and two, persuade those clients to trust them when the EVCON member may be stepping outside, or will be stepping outside their comfort zone. How do you pull that one off?
It's a huge question, Steve. I think that what there is that there's one thing from kind of an events person ideology that everybody should remember here is that there is a mindset there that you always deliver. At that point, that moment, when the curtain goes up or the event starts, whatever has happened to that point, you always deliver. And things in some other areas, maybe around technology, things like that, can sometimes be a little fluffier and maybe not quite as as disciplined as what the events industry is. So in terms of convincing a client, well, look, it's quite simple. You've always delivered. It's something which is inherent in the industry. That's we've always worked and delivered. Usually on time, on budget, all of those things. I think there are some other learnings which are about not just kind of stepping out of your kind of comfort zone, like maybe kind of Carl was talking about there, but there are other things as well where we've always kind of as an industry been slightly subservient to that world of advertising. Advertising obviously the ones that kind of sometimes get the big budgets and the big ideas, but there are certain skills as to how they go about relationships with clients, which I think is that there are lessons to be learned. Account handling is a very key skill. I certainly think that that's something that we should actively bring in. Anybody else?
Out of all the examples that you've shown us in the last session, which of the ones do you think are ready to translate most easily into the events arena? Some of them you might stand there and say are probably too far ahead for some companies, or others might not be. So if you're looking at the whole portfolio of the future and the trends, which ones do you think will be taken into the marketplace earliest in terms of clients accepting them?
Yeah, I mean, sorry to kind of answer that with a question, but we need, of course, to define, firstly what is an event. I suppose we have, we're more commonly as an industry commissioned to do a brand launch or a new initiative or a change program or an annual conference or those kind of things. But obviously the notion of what actually is an event is, quite clear there. I mean, I feel everything that we've shown today has, is out there, is commonly being used, is being used by kind of, major brand around the world. It's still, a lot of what we've kind of shown there is not going out very commonly. They are, still at the kind of the foundation stages, but I don't think there's kind of anything that we've kind of shown there that wouldn't be commonly being used over the next year. Not at all.